you were mentioning a little bit about the coaching that you're doing in the team that you have there.
Mhm.
And one of the things that came up is like back when I was racing, I think like Jason Leanow was one of the steeplechase guys that I used
Yep.
to race against. And you mentioned Ivan Huff. I think he was a steeplechase guy
Yep.
from back in the day. Tell me a little bit about the kind of the makeup of the team right now that you have with the Aggies and some of the things that you like to do in terms of coaching.
Yeah. The thing is, yeah, in many respects, I mean, we've had people make the Olympic team. In many respects,
Yeah,
it's about a lot of our athletes making the Olympic trials, right? It's getting decent decent college kids and giving them an opportunity to keep improving. Because the reason you stop doing any sort of physical activity is you stop improving, right? And so that's my main
yeah.
recruiting thing is, Josh, do you think you can keep getting faster,
This
right?
point, no.
No, but when you're in college, that's the thing. That's why you keep doing it, right?
Yeah,
Can you,
yeah,
do you think you can keep getting faster? Because here's an opportunity, and a lot of the guys I get are going to be, maybe 29, 30 kind of guys,
mm,
and trying to get those kind of guys to the Olympic trials, you know. And then sometimes you get people that do significantly better than that, but that's part of it. And then we didn't really have much of a women's team, I'd say 3 years ago when we signed
yeah.
up with HOKA, and their goal number one for us was to develop a women's team.
Oh, cool.
And then this past fall, our women's team ended up winning the club cross
Yeah, the club
championships.
cross. Yeah, they ran really,
Right.
really well.
They
Yeah,
ran really well, right? And so that was fantastic. And our guys did a surprising third. Like when I was listening to the results, they're saying the Aggies got third, and I go, no, we didn't. We won. And then all of a sudden, I realized they're going, oh, it's the men's team that got third. I
that's the
thought we got
guys.
like
Yeah,
fifth or eighth or something like that. So we had, it was really satisfying. So, um, but a lot of it is just allowing people the opportunity to improve
yeah,
and giving them the structure to do it. The other thing is we've always been a blue collar team in terms of everyone works full time, everyone's going after career, because if you can't run, you need a resume, right?
yeah, 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 for sure. Yeah,
Right.
for sure.
And so some people don't think it's ideal, but that's part of the whole thing is, you got to work, you got to have a job, you got to
Yeah,
pay the bills.
yeah, yeah,
And any prize money you win should be for toys, right? It should be for a trip. It should
right.
be for something that you're not planning. You shouldn't be trying to pay rent off of race winnings
Yeah,
because that's
I
not,
mean, that's a
that's
huge
not going to
pressure,
work.
man. That's never
Yeah.
going to work. That's never going to
Yeah.
work. There's not enough money out there for folks to to subside on in terms of
No.
prize
And I
money for
think
sure.
if you talk to someone like Scott Baus, Scott, what do you run in college? 27:41 or something like that. I mean,
Yeah,
I mean,
sub
his third,
four.
yeah, third fastest American-born 10K guy in college, right? And he's
Yep.
D2 and he gets signed with Adidas. And he just, if you talk to him about it, a lot of pressure, a lot of pressure. Like if you're not
Yeah.
racing well, you know, your contract is done.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, one of the things that I thought was is that I love about the Aggies is not necessarily just like the performance they have at that Olympic level, but it's also kind of the community aspect. So take for example, like I used to do a bunch of work with Beta Breakers and work with Searles all the time,
Right.
and that idea of community was something that I always loved. And how do you keep a little bit of that? How do you keep that fun all the way through from when folks are really serious about it, but making sure that there's a little bit of love for the game when when you decide that that's not the most important thing in your life anymore?
Yeah. I mean, we have a couple things and we have two distinct groups, right? We have the
Yeah,
competitive kids and we have the older Aggies. And so we have running camp, but it's like Aggie family camp. Like my kids go and all the older Aggies go. We have a good time. But what we do is we require our athletes who are getting stuff to show up to two events.
oh yeah, okay,
They need to show up to Beta Breakers and they need to show up to the PA Cross Country Championships.
right,
And the PA Cross Country Championships is where we bring all the old people and all the young people, and we have a picnic afterwards and tell stories. And you have the older
yeah,
Aggies that are yelling for the young people, and it works out. We also have the Matt Yo Invitational in October, which is similar. We have a giant picnic
right,
afterwards. so that's a large part of it. And, trying to connect, it's difficult though, when you have people that are my age that have careers and have, kids that are in college and, they're
Yeah,
getting close to retirement or whatever, they're just at a different spot. But we
yeah,
try as much
yeah,
as possible. And then, we also have things like I organize the Rubio tours for track nationals and the Olympic trials. And so usually
yeah.
for the Olympic trials, we get 100 to 125 people. Not all of them are Aggies, but I buy the tickets. I make sure that Mike Riley gets us on the start of the
Right,
1500 right on the rail.
right, right, right.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool that way too. You get that many people at the trials, and it's pretty fun.
Yeah, and I think actually, honestly, I think you're underselling that a little bit because if folks aren't familiar with your presence at the trials or really any track meet, when those get back up and rolling, it's a different experience than just sitting with a couple of friends, somewhere in the middle of the home stretch, that sort of thing. Like, what's the what's the vibe around that? Tell folks a little bit about what does make it cool. I mean,
So what you have is you have a lot of track nuts.
yeah,
So like you have, okay, so Jim Grail passed away this week or last week,
right,
right?
right, right, right.
Well, the guy who wrote the obituary, Peter Thompson, who used to be head of coaching education for IAAF, like
Oh,
he's
really?
part of the group. And you have Mike Finelli. So I don't know if follow
Yeah,
Mike Finelli on
I know Mike.
Facebook,
Yeah, yeah.
but he has arguably the largest track and field memorabilia collection on the planet. So he's part of the group. And then you add people that show up like Coach Vigil. So he's part of the
Yep.
group. And you have Peanut Harms, and then you have Pete Sweeney, and you have just a ton of people that just know the sport. And so you're bantering back and forth. So it's like when you watch track on TV, for the most part, it's dumbing it down. This is not
Yeah,
dumbing it down. Like you got to come equipped with your knowledge of the history of the sport, about the events and so forth. And so taking this to a second generation, my daughter, oldest daughter, is a distance runner, and she throws these crazy strategies into races. So she's pretty good. And I'll ask her where that came from, and she'll cite a meet from back in 2010 that somebody pulled, right?
yeah,
And she's
yeah, yeah.
pulling this crap, and so it's like an unfair advantage, right? She's doing stuff that nobody knows what's going on, right? They're just used to just hanging and kicking the best they
Right.
can, and she's throwing surges in like one of them was 1,000 meters to go, running each 200 faster than the previous one.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
It's
Just
just
like
stuff like that, but
retro run. Yeah,
it's by osmosis, right? And she's telling the team about the history of the sport, right? And I think she took a track and field class in junior high, and they talked about John Carlos, and
oh
then
yeah.
she showed up the next day with a picture of her and John Carlos, and then okay, Ashton Eaton, right? And then she shows up a picture with Ashton Eaton, right? And all these people that she's gotten to know over the years, and the teachers are, who in the hell are you, right? But this is part of it. She just gets to know these people. She played when she was a kid. She played Duck Duck Goose with Joan Benoit, right?
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
so it's an unfair advantage in that. But it's just you get around these. You've been around the sport a long time, and we're just fortunate. I mean, a good friend of mine is Steve Jones. Well, the guy had the world record in the marathon, right? I mean,
Right,
I
right,
ran the Beta
right.
Breakers with him, and then
Yeah.
you got guys like what? Well, I was at the Olympic trials. Were at the Boston Marathon one year, 2004, I think it was. Yeah, and so I'm sitting with Greg Meyer, who won Boston Marathon in
Right.
'93,
Yep.
right? And he
Yep.
tells me he's got to go, and I go, okay, well, good to see you. Well, where he had to go was throw out the first pitch for the Red Sox game because it was the 20th anniversary of when he won the Boston Marathon. And I see him the next day. I go, well, you asshole, why didn't you tell me you were going to go throw out the first pitch of the Boston? You could tell me that. That's
Yeah,
kind of cool
yeah, yeah,
stuff.
yeah. That is
You know,
cool stuff. That is hilarious. Look,
but
I think the thing that makes it super cool for me is like, even though you got all that knowledge, it's the attitude of the group is like, yeah, sure, come on over, grab a beer, hang out, like learn something. It's not exclusionary, right? Like
yeah,
there's a lot of folks that are there, but if you want to learn and you want to be a part of it, just come on over. And what I find like is that's it seems like that's the same vibe as down in running in yeah, down at Cal Poly where look, hey, if you love the sport, come on over. We all share the same sort of love for that, and we can all have that same sort of enjoyment.
Yeah.
And the point of it is like sometimes, as runners, you kind of complain about whether or not there's enough, I don't know, spotlight on the sport, or there's enough events or something like that. And I think sometimes you forget about why we really love it, why we enjoy it. And it's not a lot of that community, right? It's like getting
Right.
together and sharing the stories.